Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with a story that matters. This isn't about viral trends or breaking headlines. It's about one woman, a quiet roadside cafe, and a moment that flipped everything on its head. Her name is Lena Maxwell. She's 30, steady and unassuming, working the night shift at a little diner off the state highway in upstate New York. She moves like someone used to being ignored, deliberate, precise, and always watching. But behind her calm eyes is something the world rarely notices. A mind that sees patterns, breaks problems down, and builds solutions, one line of code at a time on a cracked old laptop no one asks about. What's coming her way tonight? It's not just a customer, it's a collision between arrogance and quiet brilliance. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city and the time you are watching. Now close your eyes or don't, it's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The rain hits the windows in soft, rhythmic taps like fingers against glass. Inside the cafe, it's warm. Golden light glows from hanging bulbs that swing slightly with the door's occasional creak. There's an old jukebox near the window that still plays vinyl, even though half its buttons stick. The scent of brewed coffee and grilled onions floats through the room. It's late after 10, but Lena is still moving with her usual quiet focus, wiping counters, refilling ketchup bottles, checking on regulars who don't need to ask for their orders anymore. She doesn't notice the man at first, not until he steps in with a gust of wet air and that telltale stiffness of someone used to commanding rooms. His umbrella folds with an impatient flick. The rain glistens on his expensive shoes. His coat is perfectly tailored, his jaw set like granite. Grant Whitaker, 48, CEO of a major tech empire with holdings across 3 continents, walks into the little cafe like it's a mistake. But he's here, not because he wants to be, but because he's exhausted, angry, and out of moves. The storm outside is nothing compared to the one he carries in his chest. Sit wherever Lena says without turning her voice even polite. She's heard all kinds walk through that door. He doesn't reply. Just slides into a booth near the back, drops a sleek black briefcase on the table like it weighs more than it should. She watches him now, just briefly. Something about the way he's hunched over those papers, no food, no phone, just pages and pages of densely printed text with scribbled notes in red ink. Her instincts don't miss much. She walks over slowly. Coffee. He nods without looking. As she pours, she sees his jaw flex, the pen in his hand twitching as he marks something on the margins. You look like you've been reading that thing for hours. He finally glances up and there's a flash of irritation in his eyes. It's a merger agreement, he says flatly. $2 billion worth of red tape and traps. Lena nods. Tough night. He scoffs, then leans back slightly, finally seeing her for more than just a coffee refill. His eyes narrow. Not in curiosity, judgment. You wouldn't understand, he mutters. This kind of thing isn't diner talk. The words don't sting the way he expects. She's heard worse, but it's the way he says it offhand, like a man who's been taught his whole life that intelligence comes in suits and titles and anything outside that is just noise. She doesn't answer, just wipes the table beside him slowly. The silence stretches. Then he picks up a page from the stack, flips it toward her, almost mockingly. If you're so smart, he says, voice dripping with sarcasm, why don't you try translating this legal mess? The page lands near her elbow, dense with clauses and subclauses. Her eyes don't flinch. Her hand hovers over the edge of the paper. You sure? He nods, lips tight. By all means. She lifts the page, folds it neatly in half, and reads silently for a moment. Her brow creases not in confusion but calculation. Then, without looking at him, she says, this clause here, it's a liability cap, but there's no matching indemnity. That means if your company gets sued post-merger, you eat the full cut, no split, no recourse. Grant straightens eyes, narrowing. She turns the page. And here Synergy Tech can back out if your stock drops 8% in the first 30 days. That gives them a perfect window to manipulate your market and walk away clean. He's frozen, completely still. Lena finally looks at him, her expression calm. That's not just red tape. That's a trap. Grant leans forward slowly, disbelief tightening the lines in his face. Who are you? Her smile is faint, not smug. Just honest. Someone the world stops seeing. The diner is silent for a long second. The rain ticks on. He doesn't speak again, just stares. Not at her, but at the pages in front of him, now tainted with the realization that everything he thought he understood might have already been unraveling. But not everything stays buried forever. The storm outside begins to calm, but the one inside Grant Whitaker's chest churns harder than ever. His fingers hover over the contract pages Lena just dissected like they're foreign to him now. She hadn't just skimmed through legalese, she'd pulled the teeth from it, found the hidden fangs his entire legal team missed. That reality lands hard like a stone in his gut. He doesn't know whether to be impressed or insulted. His silence stretches longer than he intends until Lena gently places the folded page back on the table and walks away. Not waiting for a thank you, no smile, no self-congratulations, just the same unassuming stride she used to bring him coffee. She disappears behind the counter. Grant watches her go. A woman who waits tables in a roadside diner just outmaneuvered every suit he pays six figures to. And she did it with a tone so calm, so quietly surgical, it makes his jaw tighten in shame. He pulls the paper back toward him and rereads the lines she pointed out. His heart starts to thud faster. She's right, every word. And worse, this isn't just oversight. This is a weapons synergy tech planted hoping no one would notice. They knew how overconfident his team would be. They knew he would be too busy, too burned out, too arrogant to see the flaw before it detonated. He looks toward the counter again, where Lena now restocks sugar packets in tidy rows, humming faintly. Her presence has changed the atmosphere entirely. The diner feels less like an escape and more like a classroom where he just failed a test. With a gruff sigh, he stands and walks to the counter, contract in hand. "Can I ask you something?" he mutters awkwardly. "How did you learn to see that stuff?" Lena pauses, then glances over her shoulder at him. Her voice is light. A lot of nights, no TV, no noise. Just an old laptop and legal documents from open source sites. You'd be amazed what you can teach yourself when rent's due and your dreams won't wait. Grant nods slowly. Then the sarcasm returns sharp and unfiltered. "So what, you're just a waitress with a law degree on the side?" Her smile doesn't crack. "I'm a waitress," she says softly. "And I read contracts because no one else ever read them for my family. So I learned." He blinks, feeling his smirk evaporate. There's no anger in her words, just truth, and that's what unnerves him. He's been in meetings with tech founders, senators, hedge fund kings, but no one has ever disarmed him like this. Quietly, casually, with no need for approval. She doesn't want a favor. She doesn't need to be heard. She just is competent, precise, and completely indifferent to his status. He clears his throat. "That app you mentioned, the one you're working on. What does it do?" Lena pours another cup of coffee, sets it beside him, and replies without flair. "It's called Link House. Simple interface. Secure messaging, file sharing, and video calls, designed to run smooth on outdated devices. Not everyone can afford the newest tech, but that doesn't mean they should be locked out." Grant considers her words. That's not just a coder's mind. That's a developer with purpose, a product with heart. And it's more insight than he's heard in a dozen pitch meetings. He returns to his seat with his coffee, no longer just tired, now disturbed. Disturbed by how many people like Lena might be out there working double shifts and being laughed off by boardrooms that never see past a name tag. His eyes rest on her again, and for the first time he wonders, what have I missed while chasing numbers? Later, as he gets up to leave, he pulls a business card from his wallet and walks back to the counter. "You're right," he says, "I didn't listen. And I judged you before I ever looked you in the eye. But this," he taps the contract, "this just saved my company." She says nothing. "I'd like to talk again," he adds, seriously, not as a CEO, as someone who just got taught a lesson. She looks at the card, but doesn't take it. "I'm not looking for a job," she replies, her tone firm but kind. "I'm building something." "Then let me help build it," he says, softer than before. "You lead it, I support it. No strings." That moment, just a glance exchanged in the soft amber glow of Rosie's ceiling light, changes the course of both their lives. But not everything stays buried forever. The days that follow drift by with the slow rhythm of early spring rain. But something in Lena Maxwell's world has shifted. Quietly, uneasily. Grant Whitaker's business card stays in the top drawer of her tiny apartment, unclaimed, uncalled, but not forgotten. Every time she powers on her creaky laptop, she sees the code she wrote with raw fingertips and stubborn grit. Every feature of Link House, from the low-bandwidth video calls to the offline syncing, was built between night shifts and grocery runs. The platform wasn't born in a boardroom. It was born in need. And now, someone powerful knows about it. Meanwhile, in his glossy midtown office, Grant paces. He hasn't told his board what happened at Rosie's Cafe. He hasn't told his lawyers that their airtight contract was full of holes revealed not by counsel, but by a diner waitress. That truth stays lodged like a splinter beneath his pride. But it's not shame that gnaws at him anymore. It's urgency. He needs Lena. Not as a token, not as a headline, but as the only person who saw through what his best minds missed. And more than that, he sees her clarity, her intention, the soul she builds into her code. He knows tech, and he knows heartless innovation. What Lena is building isn't just functional, it matters. 1 week later, he returns to the diner, this time without the contract. No ego, just questions. Lena sees him step in and doesn't flinch. She doesn't rush to him. She simply finishes her table, delivers a check, wipes a spill with a fresh towel. She arrives at his booth without a word, just a look. "I meant what I said," he begins, his voice less clipped now. "You lead it, I'll invest. But I want to see it grow the way you intended." She studies him for a moment, her eyes unreadable. "I don't want to be used," she says softly. "Not for optics, not to check boxes. You won't be," he replies. "You'll be the architect, the face, the decision maker. We'll do it on your terms." Lena nods once, "Then I have conditions." And just like that, the waitress becomes a founder. Her first rule, full autonomy, no corporate oversight on development. Her second, her own team built from overlooked talent like herself. Her third, she keeps her shift at Rosie's until the first public release. "This place got me through my worst," she explains. "I'm not leaving until I know this thing is real." Grant agrees one by one without hesitation. From there, the world begins to change shape. In a borrowed conference room inside Hunter Tech's lower campus, Lena sits in front of a wall-sized monitor presenting Link House to a stunned group of engineers. Her voice is steady, her language plain, but her thinking is light years ahead. She isn't trying to impress, she's trying to solve problems. Every day, she takes the long train from the diner to the office, still in her work shoes, still carrying that old laptop in a canvas tote. But her name is now on whiteboards and internal memos and whispered in executive halls. At night, she still scrapes dried syrup off cafe tables. But something about her has changed. The regulars see it, the way her eyes shine with purpose, the way her posture holds an invisible confidence now. Not pride, clarity. Yet the closer they get to launching, the more Lena digs back into the original merger contract. Something about it still doesn't sit right with her. And one night in a conference room, long after everyone else has gone home, she finds it. A buried clause in Appendix D, masked in vague language and positioned like legal padding. But Lena sees it instantly for what it is, a kill switch. If Hunter Tech's stock drops more than 8% within 30 days of the merger, Synergy Tech can walk away without penalty. All they'd need to do is manipulate a few rumors, stir the market, and trigger the drop. Hunter Tech would lose everything: cash, time, trust, and Synergy would leave clean. She closes her laptop, slowly, heart pounding. This isn't just a mistake. This is sabotage hiding in plain sight. The next morning, she marches into Grant's office. "We have a problem," she says, dropping the contract on his desk. Grant's brow furrows as she opens to the flagged page. This clause, she points, was designed to let them pull out after triggering a stock drop. "And if they do, your board takes the fall." His face pales. "My legal team missed it," Lena cuts in. "They missed it, but I didn't." Grant reads in stunned silence, then leans back, his hand trembling slightly on the page. "You saved us," he whispers. "No," Lena replies, her voice calm. "I protected myself. Because I know what it's like to be left holding the fallout." She says it without bitterness. Just fact. That's when it hits Grant. Lena isn't just brilliant. She's weathered. She's someone who's fought systems and silence her whole life and chose to become smarter than the people who tried to overlook her. He looks up, humbled beyond words. And from that moment on, every room Lena walks into feels it. She's no one's assistant, no one's lucky break. She's the architect of everything they're about to build. But not everything stays buried forever. The walls of Hunter Tech no longer echo with the same clipped formality they once did. Ever since Lena Maxwell took her seat at the table, a quiet recalibration has spread through the halls. Not because she demands attention, but because the work speaks louder than any title ever could. Every morning she steps into the glass tower in the same worn canvas shoes she wore behind Rosie's counter, holding a laptop that has seen more late nights than most junior engineers. She doesn't care about designer heels or a glossy bio on the website. She cares about Linkhouse and the millions of people it's meant to serve. Word travels fast. A self-taught developer, a diner waitress, a woman of color from nowhere special. And yet every meeting she attends ends the same way, colleagues leaning forward, scribbling notes, asking her the questions now. Lena isn't playing catch-up. She's setting the pace. Still, respect in theory isn't always respect in practice. At a strategy meeting with senior product leads, mostly men with degrees from Ivy League schools and decades of polished pitch decks, Lena presents her plan for Linkhouse's open beta. One of the executives chuckles lightly. "It's a solid idea," he says, not looking up from his phone, "but maybe we should wait to launch until we can attach a more credible name to it." The room freezes. Lena doesn't blink. "Credible how?" she asks quietly. He hesitates. "I just mean, maybe someone with experience leading large-scale deployments." She folds her hands. Her voice remains even. "I've led this from day one, built every feature, drafted the infrastructure. If experience means navigating a billion-dollar trap your legal team missed, consider me overqualified." The tension is sharp, but she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Grant speaks next. "Linkhouse doesn't need another name. It already has the only one that matters." The exec nods stiffly. The room moves on. But that moment doesn't leave Lena. Not because it's new, but because it's familiar. Another subtle push to the margins. Another attempt to doubt her place. She breathes through it, keeps going, keeps building. Because every line of code she writes is a line of resistance, of refusal. She reworks the beta rollout plan, adds a contingency server to support rural schools with poor bandwidth, builds accessibility functions so voice commands can control every feature. She names the backup protocol after her late mother, Elaine, quietly embedded in the code. Meanwhile, she begins interviewing her own hires, not based on pedigree, based on grit, talent, vision. A 21-year-old woman from a trade school in Georgia who taught herself Python on a public library computer. A single father from Detroit who fixes used smartphones for his neighbors, and once built a peer-to-peer SMS system from scratch. A Mexican-American teenager who reverse-engineered an entire app using only a broken Android phone and YouTube videos. These are her people. Not polished, not framed on glossy brochures, but real, ready. She brings them into the Linkhouse development team, no apologies, no permission asked. When one director questions her decision in a private email, "Are these the right faces to represent a national product launch?" she replies with a one-line message, "Yes, because they've earned it." The board stays silent after that. 2 weeks before launch, Lena holds her final internal review. She stands at the front of a room full of engineers, some in suits, some in thrifted jackets, some in jeans that still carry dust from service jobs they haven't quite left yet. She doesn't use a PowerPoint. She tells a story. "I built this," she says, "because I watched my mom try to FaceTime her doctor through a cracked phone and dial-up internet. Because my brother couldn't upload his homework file from a school library with ancient machines. I built it because I was tired of seeing people left behind, not because they weren't smart, but because the system never made room for them." Her voice doesn't shake. Her eyes scan the room. This isn't charity. It's not about giving people a chance. It's about recognizing the people who've been ready all along. Silence, and then applause. Even the most skeptical board members have nothing left to argue. Not after seeing the speed, stability, and elegance of Linkhouse. Not after hearing from early testers who cried when they realized they could finally video call their families without freezing screens and dropped audio. Lena's leadership becomes impossible to ignore. Her story impossible to dismiss. But not everything stays buried forever. The launch happens on a gray April morning, the sky outside City Hall painted in soft overcast light. A modest white banner stretches across the entrance, Linkhouse Launch and Community Day. No fireworks, no celebrity guest speakers, Just rows of folding chairs filled with teachers, small business owners, and first-time developers, people who have never been invited to sit front row at anything involving tech. Inside, Lena Maxwell waits quietly behind the curtain. She doesn't wear a blazer or a designer dress, just a crisp white shirt, jeans, and her signature canvas sneakers. Her hands are steady, her voice rehearsed, but her eyes scan the crowd for one face in particular. Not Grant, not the press, but a young girl no older than 12 seated between her mother and a school librarian from Albany. That girl reminds her of herself, awkward posture, deep eyes, hands fidgeting with a hair tie. That's who she's here for. When Lena walks on stage, there's no roar, just stillness and then the quiet pull of attention from every corner of the room. Her voice, when it begins, carries not with bravado, but conviction. My name is Lena Maxwell. Some of you know me from Rosie's Cafe. Some of you don't know me at all. But I built Link House because I believe connection shouldn't be a luxury. She clicks a small remote. Behind her, the interface appears clean, intuitive, glowing. This platform runs on low memory, works without high-speed internet, and supports voice commands for those who can't type. It's not perfect, but it's built with purpose, not to impress, to include. The crowd begins to nod, then lean forward. Teachers whisper. Developers exchange glances. And this, Lena continues, her voice softening, was written on a second-hand laptop during night shifts by someone no one expected to succeed. A pause, but now I know expectation means nothing. What matters is resolve, and who we choose to lift with us when we rise. Applause rises not explosive, but thunderous in its depth, in its truth. In the front row, Grant Whitaker rises to clap, not as a sponsor, not as a CEO, but as a man who once failed to see the extraordinary until it looked him in the eye and called his bluff. Over the next 30 days, Link House surpasses 1 million downloads, not from marketing stunts, but word of mouth. Community centers, teachers, nurses, parents, underserved neighborhoods that now feel seen. National tech media hails Lena as the unexpected founder, but she corrects them every time. No, I wasn't unexpected, I was just unseen. Within Hunter Tech, a quiet revolution takes root. Grant restructures the hiring model. Ivy League filters are removed, and outreach is expanded to overlooked cities, trade schools, and returning veterans. He gives Lena full autonomy to lead a mentorship pipeline, pairing her developers with young people learning to code on borrowed tablets. A year later, Rosie's Cafe hosts a different kind of gathering. Lena returns not as a waitress, but as a mentor, sitting with 3 young coders who remind her of what it means to begin with nothing but a dream and a borrowed charger. Grant arrives late, dressed in a windbreaker instead of a tailored coat. He buys coffee for the entire room, then takes his seat beside Lena like a student arriving to class. They don't talk about stocks or mergers. They talk about impact, about overlooked brilliance, about the patience it takes to let someone prove themselves when the world won't. As the sky outside deepens into dusk and the glow of the diner softens, Lena glances across the table at one of the young students struggling to write a simple loop in JavaScript. She leans in and smiles, eyes calm and warm. You've already got the hard part, she says. You believe you can, because that's where it starts. Not with code, not with contracts, but with someone saying you belong here. Soften the rhythm now, let the storm settle. Grant no longer enters rooms assuming he holds all the answers. He listens more than he speaks. He's not a different man. He's a man becoming. Lena still writes late into the night, not chasing wealth but reach. She's building new bridges with every update of Link House, not just to underserved users, but to the next girl with a dream and no spotlight. And out there across cities and small towns, quiet hands type on borrowed keyboards. Not because they know someone will notice, but because someone already did. That's the power of justice, not loud or vengeful, but persistent, rooted in dignity, led by grace. And that's the redemption. Sometimes the most powerful stories don't begin with applause. They begin in silence, in the unnoticed corners of everyday life. A tired woman refilling coffee, a frustrated man chasing control, and a moment when the world quietly asks, are you ready to see what you've been ignoring? Lena Maxwell didn't rise by shouting. She rose by listening, learning, waiting. She didn't demand the space, she made it. And in doing so, she redefined what it means to lead. Grant Whitaker didn't fall, he woke up. And in that awakening, he traded authority for awareness, for the humility to see brilliance where others saw service, for the courage to pass the mic instead of holding it tighter. This story isn't just about tech or contracts or mergers. It's about what changes when we stop measuring people by where they came from and start seeing them for what they carry inside. You may never sit in a boardroom, but maybe you've sat at a diner table wondering if anyone will ever see your worth. Let this be your reminder. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need permission. It grows quietly until one day the world finally catches up.